What's up guys, my name is Lauren, welcome back to my channel. This month actually marks 4 years since my husband and I started our debt-free journey, so I thought this would be a great time to kind of take a look back over the last 4 years and see how far we've come, because a lot has changed. I say 4 years since we started our debt-free journey, but really it's been 4 years since we started like our total life financial overhaul, because we were not only in debt, but we were spending uncontrollably. We were not focused on our finances. We were not budgeting in the way that we should and like taking the time to focus on money the way that we should. And it has been a journey over the last 4 years, but it has been one of the absolute best things I've ever done in my whole life, and I would highly recommend it. So if you are in a bad financial position and you are looking to make a New Year's resolution to get things to improve, definitely go for it, and I hope this video inspires you to get started. Okay, so we're gonna go through some numbers and just like take a look at where we were at 4 years ago. Now, my husband and I at that point had a 7-month-old baby, and I was just starting to panic thinking about how much debt we had and how much I wanted financial stability for our child and hopefully future children. And now we have 2 kids, and that was just really like a wake-up call for me that I didn't want my daughter to ever have to worry about me having enough money in retirement. I wanted to give her opportunities in life to get ahead financially based on me and my husband making smart financial decisions, and I just didn't want to feel stressed about money all the time anymore. So let's go through it. First of all, my husband and I, at this point in January of 2020, had $32,994 of credit card debt. So basically $33,000 of credit card debt. And that had accumulated over the course of only 3 years. And that was the 3 years after we bought our first home. It was a condo, and it was only a couple years old, and I thought it wouldn't be very expensive to be a homeowner, and it was. Plus we put some vacations on that card. We put clothes and other shopping on that card, stuff for the house, home repairs, stuff like that, because we didn't have a good emergency fund. And that was really bad because credit card debt is such high interest debt that it was costing us so much money every month. So when we started paying off debt, we definitely tackled the credit card debt first and then moved on to the other debts. So the other debts we had at that point, we had my car loan, which had a really low interest rate of 3%, and that only had about $6,000 left on it, but we had taken out a 6-year loan, so we'd already been paying on that for quite a while. That started out in like the $30,000 range. I remember my car, I think, was around $32,000 or so. I have a Nissan Murano, and I still have that car, and it's been paid off for a while now. And when you first pay off your car and you're driving around a paid off car, it is the best feeling. Like, I own this car. It's so good. So yeah, I still have that car. It's at like 125,000 miles. Hopefully it'll go like another 125,000. And then we'll be in a place to buy my next car for cash, hopefully. But yeah. All right. And then we also had a home equity line of credit, and that had a balance of about $23,000. We had used that to do some construction in our home to turn an open loft into another bedroom, which ended up being really helpful during the pandemic because we had another room that we could use as an office, and my husband and I for a time were both working from home while I was still working in my corporate job. And so between like having a baby and both of us working from home, having that extra bedroom was super helpful, but we couldn't pay for it. We put it on credit and we got a home equity line. This is actually a good story. We had to go to a special credit union that would lend you up to 95% of the value of your home, because usually you can only get a home equity line of credit if you have like enough equity in your house. But we had to go to a special credit union that would let us like take out more equity out of our house than normal banks would, because we had so little equity in our home because we had only bought it a couple years prior and the housing market hadn't gone up that much at that point. And so we were able to take out the value of our home. And looking back, like if the housing market had dropped and we had all that debt and hadn't paid it off, like that was a risky move. Ended up working out okay at the end, mostly because we paid it off and the housing market did go up, but it didn't necessarily have to go that way. So glad that things went our way and we did get that paid off. And then lastly, we had 2 massive student loans, one for me and one for my husband. And those student loans were both 6 figures and super stressful. So those were like the last thing that we planned to tackle. But let's fast forward to where we are today and talk about everything that's changed. So today we have no credit card debt. We've been credit card debt free since the end of 2020. Being credit card debt free, I could not recommend it more. Credit card debt is such expensive debt. The interest rates are so high, or if they're zero or low, it's usually a promotional rate and it's just like a temporary thing. So being credit card debt free, like credit card debt was one of the most stressful debts we had. So if you're in credit card debt, like the number one thing you need to do is just stop using your credit cards unless it's an emergency, and figure out a way to make the money you have pay for your bills and your food and everything. And if that's not enough, then go make more money. Like that's really what it comes down to, because if you are living off of credit cards, like it's an endless dark cycle and it's no good. All right, so in the last 4 years, we also paid off our home equity line of credit, which as it turns out, we've now sold that condo, and so it would have gotten paid off with the sale proceeds anyway. But it still was like a risky debt to have, and I'm glad we paid it off, because then we netted more from the sale of our home. And just the more debts you have, the more payments you have in your monthly budget and cash flow, and the more it makes things tight and risky. So we decided to pay that off, and I actually started sharing my debt-free journey in like September, October of 2020, I think. And so I posted monthly debt payoff updates, and you can go back and watch all of them every single month, me going through paying thousands and thousands of dollars to these debts and how we did it month by month. So it looks like within the first 2 years, we paid off everything except for our 2 large student loans, my husband's student loan from his MBA program and my law school student loan. But everything else we had paid off within the first 2 years. And at that point, I actually left my job to be a stay-at-home mom slash part-time content creator here on YouTube, and it's very part-time. It's something that I hope to grow over time as my kids get older and I have more time to work on this business, but it is not my first priority, just being perfectly honest. It was more when we were in like crushing debt. I was hustling a little harder, but now I just do it as like to bring in a little bit of extra money and have something that I'm working on building over time. And that was really pivotal for us, because I hated my job as an attorney and wanted desperately to get out of it. So it was a hard decision to leave when we were still in debt, and we are still technically in debt, and I'll talk about that in a second. We don't have all of our student loans paid off yet, but it was still the right decision. I've been out of it for 2.5 years now, and my quality of life, my health, my mental health, my ability to be a good mom and wife and friend has just gone up so much, and I have zero regrets. So this is what paying off debt allowed me to do, allowed us to get to this point where we can make a decision to make less money as a family because it was better for the family as a whole. And that level of freedom, you like can't put a price on that. So in 2022 and 2023, we continued paying off student loans, and in mid 2023, we actually sold our condo and moved to an apartment. We knew that condo wasn't a forever home. We knew we wanted to move to a place slightly different. My daughter's actually 4.5 now, so she's starting kindergarten this fall, which is crazy. And we knew we wanted to be in a different school district. And so we weren't quite sure where we wanted to go. And also the housing market was so crazy. There was no way we were going to be able to buy a home here in Massachusetts while still owning our home. Like if we put in an offer that included a contingency that we had to sell our own home or that our own home was pending, like it wasn't going to work. And there weren't many choices. We didn't want to rush into buying something that we didn't totally love just because we had a small window of time to buy a home, and we weren't convinced that we wanted to stay in Massachusetts. So we wanted to just sell our home, get out of it, pay off the rest of our debt was kind of the idea, and then rent for a while and just like kind of see how we felt about everything. So as of May 2023, I've been calling us debt free because we have more than enough money in savings to pay off our last debt, which is my husband's student loan, which currently stands with a balance of, let me look, of $67,000. So right now our total debt is $67,000, which just in the abstract, that's a pretty big number still compared to having no debt. But compared to where we were in like multiple 6-figure debt back 4 years ago, I'm like, it's nothing. It's at a 2.8% interest rate that payment is $830 a month. So it's like the amount of a car payment or so, and that's our only debt. So it feels so good to be in a place where we don't have credit card debt, we don't have car loans, we don't have any debt besides one student loan that's at a really low interest rate. Another important part of this journey has been investing. We didn't invest in 2020 at all, I think. Maybe we got the match on my husband's 401k. Because he had a match. I didn't. I had like a profit share, so I didn't have to contribute anything. But in 2020, we didn't do any other investing. We just focused on paying off debt. And that's because our debt was such high interest. I just felt like it was a better use of our money, and like more important that we got good at debt payoff before we focused on investing. Then in 2021, we started investing alongside paying off our debt. So I don't have the exact numbers, but I know we had a very negative net worth up until like, I think it was around January 2022, so about 2 years ago, that we hit a positive net worth rather than a negative one. And back in 2020, I believe we had maybe $40,000 invested for retirement. Now, to give you some context, at that time, my husband and I were both 32 years old. So considering we were both making six figures in professional jobs and we're in our early 30s and only had $40,000 invested for retirement is not great. So since then we have consistently invested, and now as of January 2024, we currently have $138,000 invested for retirement. So it's gone up quite a bit. We still, I feel like, are behind where we should be, but we've been really focusing on debt payoff. And I'm really excited now to have the opportunity to focus more on investing and building our net worth through growing our assets rather than just paying down our liabilities. Investing is a lot more fun than debt payoff because it's building wealth instead of just like paying a creditor. Also, my husband and I are both 36 going on 37 this year, so it's time. It's time that we get focused on investing for retirement, because the more early you invest, the longer your money has to grow and less heavy lifting you have to do, and the more compound interest will work in your favor. So this is a super huge priority for us going forward. The last thing that I'd say that's really changed with our finances in the last 4 years is we've gotten good at budgeting and staying on budget. Before, my husband would get Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts literally every single day. I wouldn't be able to walk into a Target without spending $200. Like, our spending was just out of control. And it's super complicated to talk about. Like, for example, okay, you guys, if you've heard of Dave Ramsey, he's like, don't buy coffees, don't go out to dinner or anything, don't spend $3 on a coffee for yourself while you're in debt, put every dollar to debt. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Ramit Sethi, who's like, $3 coffees are not what's ruining your cash flow. Like, treat yourself to that coffee and focus on the big money decisions, not the dollar decisions. And I think they're both wrong, honestly. I think it's somewhere in between, because I agree that you don't want to restrict yourself and never buy a $3 coffee or $6 coffee or whatever the case is. But at the same time, if you do that every day, it does add up. There has to be moderation with it. So I feel like finding that balance between treating yourself and enjoying life while also not taking it overboard and being uncontrolled and out of balance with your spending is the place you want to be. Like, finding that sweet spot is really challenging because you're kind of like having to feed the dragon a little bit. Like, okay, you can treat yourself here, but not too much. Like, finding that in between is tough. And that's what we've spent 4 years mastering. And I'm pretty good at it. My husband's not quite as good at it, but he's much, much better than he was. I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm much, much better than I was. And we budget every month. We stay pretty much in budget every single month. Our amount that we go over budget in any given month is so small at this point. Like, I count us basically being on budget every month. And if we go over budget, it's because some unexpected thing came up, and that really doesn't even happen that much because we have sinking funds to account for all that stuff. So we've got a good budget going, we've got our emergency fund, we've got our sinking funds, we've got our spending under control. Like, our whole financial life just feels more peaceful and calm. and it's given us opportunities like for me to leave a career I hated, and more stuff that I'm gonna share about in my next video that's really exciting, some other things, and it just feels so, so good. So I could not be more happy that we started this when we did. I really wanted to be in a good financial place by the time my daughter started kindergarten. Like, that was my goal. And I think we're really gonna be in a great spot by the time the fall gets here. So thanks so much for watching. Comment below and let me know when you started watching my debt-free journey, like what month or year was it? And if you are where we were 4 years ago, I hope this video is a sign you needed to get started with improving your finances. If you wanna get started with improving your finances, but you don't really know where to start, I have 2 things of my own that I can share with you. One is my budget spreadsheet that I use every single month for my own family. You can purchase that in the link in the video description. And also I have a budget coaching program if you need some accountability and want to work with me for a few months to get started with budgeting or improve your budgeting. That will be linked in the video description as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.